To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Once upon a time, a master storyteller, Walt Disney, inspired by Europe's best-loved tales, used his own special gifts to share them with the world. He envisioned a magic kingdom where these stories would come to life and called it Disneyland. He envisioned a magic kingdom. Now his dreams return to the lands that inspired it. Euro Disneyland is dedicated to the young and the young at heart, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration for all the world.
Behind the set Disney smiles, there are worries. French locals haven't welcomed Mickey and friends with open arms. They think it's a goofy idea. Some reckon taxpayers have been unfairly stung. Others are angry about the influx of American culture.
I don't remember anybody saying that America was being invaded by French culture. Half our words in English seem to be French. Every restaurant I ever went to in New York was French. I don't think France has overtaken culturally the U.S. any more than we're going to overtake France. I think it's much ado about nothing.
Disney does a lot of stuff right. More recently, though, a lot of people have been catching on to the fact that they don't do a whole lot of stuff right. Sometimes their movies are, you know, and sometimes their parks are, well, they could be better, okay? And while I like to talk about some of the successes Disney has had over the years, because trust me, they have had a ton of successes, I think sometimes you need to pull back the curtain, get down to the nitty-gritty, and just talk about the things that suck. The things that Disney did once upon a time and today upon a time that had people scratching their heads and wondering who approved this and for what reason. Today I plan on telling you why these things were approved, what they are, and why they were just so bad. From horrifying celebrities to taking away one of the most beloved Disney attractions of all time, here are some Disney fails or some Disney mistakes that I think are just the absolute worst. So, I mean, this is a top 10, and what better place to start than at number... In 2001, a brand new park opened across the street from Disneyland in Anaheim, California, or I guess across the Esplanade. It had people talking. I mean, it's not like they had to bulldoze an entire land or other park for it. No, they just built it on top of a parking lot. What guests experienced in 2001, though, made them wish that the parking lot was there instead. It was originally known as Disney's California Adventure, and it was meant to serve as an homage to the state of California in Anaheim, California. And the problem with the original California Adventure, I think, was not the theme. I think a California themed park, even in California, could work. The problem is that it was a budget park. Now, the original budget parks like Hong Kong Disneyland, now California Adventure, were thrown up very quickly, and they didn't really contain that quintessential Disney essence. It was just sort of a quick hack job of a park. I mean, California Adventure was based on the real-life state of California, not a mystical fantasy realm or the Wild West. That way, it was cheaper because you didn't have to theme it. It was themed to today. All of the attractions that everybody loves nowadays that exist at California Adventure weren't there except for California Screamin', which was a fun roller coaster. But why go to Disney's California Adventure when you could just go across the Esplanade to Disneyland, the original Disneyland? It's so much better. Under Bob Iger, DCA underwent a massive overhaul and has steadily over the years begun to regain some of those guests it lost to maybe Knott's Berry Farms, Disneyland, or Universal Studios over the years. But that doesn't mean that the original California Adventure wasn't a massive failure. Now, I like Epcot. If you watch my videos, you know that I like Epcot, and I really, really wish I had the opportunity to go on the attraction Horizons when it was open. It was sort of a dark ride sequel to the Carousel of Progress that brought us far, far into the future, and where guests could choose between 3 different endings. And because Horizons was a sort of sequel to the Carousel of Progress, it would make sense that they had the same sponsor, General Electric. But in 1993, when GE dropped their sponsorship, the future of Horizons was sort of left up in the air. Over the years, the ride's quality began to decline because Disney didn't have any money to put into it, and in 1999, it closed. Permanently? Maybe. They didn't know at the time, but yeah, it was dead. Apparently, the lack of a corporate sponsor and structural problems with the building itself were all the reasons Disney needed to bulldoze Horizons completely, to tear it all down and on top of its corpse, build Mission Space. Now, Mission Space, I'm not going to argue, is a unique experience for sure, but there's not as many people clamoring to ride Mission Space as there are Spaceship Earth, or Soarin', or even Living with the Land. The ride was so intense they had to introduce Green Team, a less intense version of it, over the years. And I personally think more people would be able to get more enjoyment out of a cool, slow-moving, original Disney dark ride based on no existing IP, rather than a centrifuge space simulator that makes people vomit. But maybe that's just me. And I'm going to say that maybe not tearing down Horizons, but definitely not rebuilding Horizons was a massive mistake. Now, Walt Disney did a lot of stuff right with Disneyland. He made a world that brought people out of the world of today and into the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. His words, not mine. But even Uncle Walt can make a few mistakes from time to time, and the Viewliner, I think, was certainly one of them. Well, yeah, it looks pretty cool, but no, kids, this isn't your mom and dad's, or yours, I guess, monorail, although it did serve as sort of a precursor to it. The Viewliner opened in 1957, 2 years after the rest of the park, and was called the fastest miniature train in the world. Was this true? No. But it certainly was a miniature train in the world. Now, although this attraction was designed by the two-time World's Best Human Award winner Bob Gurr, and you can certainly tell, I mean, it does have those classic Tomorrowland shapes. It looks like the original Mark I monorail or the Autopia cars, and that's good. It looks fine. I mean, it's Bob Gurr, come on. Unlike its older brother, the Disneyland Railroad, though, the Viewliner was not a steam locomotive. It didn't have one of those things that puffed out smoke whenever it drove past, which was good. I mean, it was supposed to be a train of the future. It instead ran on gasoline. So the Viewliner, loading right next to Autopia, you can kind of see how Tomorrowland probably smelled like gasoline land back in the day. Aside from the differences of what it looked like and what it ran on, it was essentially just another Disneyland railroad. And, well, don't get me wrong, I do like riding the Disneyland Railroad around and around and around. The Viewliner, I think, was destined to go and be replaced by the much superior monorail, which eventually had a stop at the Disneyland Hotel, so it was a legitimate mode of transportation for, the people who were visiting the Disneyland Hotel. Walt and the rest of the Imagineers seemed to agree with me that it was a failure because it closed just 2 years later in 1959. Alright, the past couple of entries have been somewhat negative, so let's go to a positive mistake. Is that possible? In February of 2020, a brand new daytime parade premiered for the first time at Disneyland. The parade was called Magic Happens and had floats from different Disney movies like Moana, Coco, Frozen 2, Cinderella, Sword in the Stone, Princess and the Frog, a bunch of movies that a lot of people like, including myself. The show would run for just about 2 weeks before being closed down because the parks closed due to COVID-19, which is understandable. That's fine. When the park reopened in 2021, though, Magic Happened was nowhere to be seen, which was still fine, because really none of the live entertainment came back, except for cavalcades and distanced characters popping up and waving at you, which is fun. I like distanced characters. But shows, fireworks, and parades, including Magic Happens, did not return. But now parades and shows are returning. Mickey's Mixed Magic is currently playing, and recently Disney announced that the Main Street Electrical Parade would be returning with brand new floats inspired by movies like Encanto, but Magic Happens was nowhere to be seen. Now, this is more of a short-term mistake, but I do believe Disney should give us back Magic Happens. The Electrical Parade coming back is pretty cool, and I've got to admit I'm excited for it, but come on, Magic Happens was only running for 2 weeks. I want to see those floats. Upon the park's reopening, though, Disney did say that Magic Happens would return in 2022. But we are now in March, almost April, and it's nowhere to be seen, so I'm not holding my breath. Oh wait, it is April now. Great. Now, you won't catch me talking trash on virtual queues and boarding groups all the time. I think they have their place for sure. When a brand new, highly anticipated attraction opens up, like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure or Rise of the Resistance, or heck, even Web Slingers for that matter. Yes, people were looking forward to it. You can tell, look at the line. It made sense to use boarding groups because otherwise guests would be looking at 5, 6, 7 hour lines, and nobody wants to wait 5 hours in line for an attraction. I don't. And there's the trade-off of having to get a boarding group to get on with a shorter wait time versus waiting so long in line. Some people prefer one, some prefer the other. I could go either way on that, but when boarding groups first became a thing and you had to be there at park open During the early days of Rise of the Resistance, that was a massive mistake. I remember back in late 2019 and early 2020 how I would have to describe to my family, yes, we do have to wake up at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning to get to Hollywood Studios before the crack of dawn, just to be able to maybe, potentially, ride Rise of the Resistance. Nobody was having a fun time doing that in the morning, and then we got called to Rise of the Resistance, and the pre-show, the entire pre-show was broken. So everywhere in the attraction, from the BB-8/Ray room all the way up through the hangar, wasn't working. The Resistance transport, none of that, so we just skipped it. Now, say what you will about Genie Plus, but at least now there are no more boarding groups or virtual queues anywhere in the parks, because that wasn't a great idea. Now, if you want to ride Rise of the Resistance, you could just buy a Lightning Lane, or, surprise, surprise, hop in the standby line. Part of me is wondering if Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind will have a virtual queue or if it'll be a Genie Plus offering when it opens. I could go either way. Knowing Disney right now though, I feel like they're going to want to sell more Lightning Lanes, so I feel like on the opening day of Guardians of the Galaxy, you will be able to hop in the standby. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, we'll see how long the lines are. But virtual queues, how they were originally implemented, were bad. Just bad. Okay, so we've established Disney needs to bring back Magic Happens solely so I can see it. I think, right, that's like the only point. Fine. There is one more show, though, that I think needs to return that, honestly, I don't see ever returning. With the 50th anniversary celebration of Walt Disney World, a bunch of shows opened for the first time, like Harmonious, which I will say is amazing. I love Harmonious. Kite Tales, which I think is hilarious, and Disney Enchantment over at the Magic Kingdom, which I think is extremely lackluster. And of course, in order to bring in a new fireworks show, they have to close down the old one in this case being Happily Ever After, the best nighttime Disney show I've ever seen in my life. Or at least one of the best. It's up there with Paint the Night. After watching Enchantment on both the actual 50th anniversary of the park on October 1st, I was there, and then again with my family when we came later on that year, I can safely say that Enchantment is not great. It's like a worse version of Happily Ever After. I've heard people describe them both as clip shows, you know, famous moments from Disney movies, but I think Happily Ever After pulled it off much better than that. It carried a whole lot more emotion, there were better special effects, and the sound and projections were so much better. I mean, Enchantment has projections on Main Street, but they're not anything to write home about. If they wanted a version of Happily Ever After for the 50th, they could have done that instead of removing it entirely. And I don't know. Okay, Enchantment leaves a lot to be desired, and Happily Ever After was perfect 10 out of 10. Now, I would retain hope for it returning someday, but I have friends who work on the inside, so to say, who say I should probably give up that hope so I'm not disappointed. But I think it bears mentioning, in the same vein as number 4 on our list, the one coming up, Disney, bring back Happily Ever After. It's the right thing to do. Come on, are you kidding? It's enough to make an offhand Disney cry. Come on, this is offhand Disney. Did you seriously expect I would make a Disney mistakes video or Disney fails video and not talk about the People Mover? The attraction that not only moved people, but also ate up crowds and gave you a wonderful airborne view of Tomorrowland and some of Fantasyland. Not as airborne as this guy though, if you like stretched over and like strained your eyes a little bit. But here's a concession I will give to Disney. I don't think them closing down the People Mover was the mistake. They could not have foreseen what was going to happen. The mistake was absolutely destroying the track with its successor, the Rocket Rods. You see, Michael Eisner wanted Disneyland to be more exciting, you know, for the kids, the young thrill seekers, and so he made the People Mover extremely fast, something that it was not built to do, and renamed it the Rocket Rods. Continuously slow-moving trains and Extremely fast-moving cars are two very different things, the latter of which broke the track and now it just sits there to this day, gathering leaves and sticks and dust and memories from guests as they walk under and through it without even knowing. And so it's my time for the yearly reiteration of my plan. Disney, shut down all of Tomorrowland, build those big construction walls you like building, and make a path from the entrance all the way back to Space Mountain. Everything else behind those walls can go down. And by down, I mean down. Like, rip it out. Except for the monorail. I think the monorail can stay. The monorail, I think, needs to stay, actually. Everything but the monorail and Space Mountain. Rip out the old broken tracks and bring back the People Mover. Need I say more? Now, I'm gonna say its successor is dead and buried. Frozen Live at the Hyperion is gone. You go to where you used to enter now, and it's a PIMS-themed seating area, for lack of a better term. And while Frozen Live at the Hyperion, I think was fine, it was definitely like a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10, if 5 is like middle of the road. You know what was a 10 out of 10 though, every time? Aladdin Live at the Hyperion. Why? Well, why do you even have to ask that question? It was the genie. The genie made the show every time. I'm not even joking to you all right now. I saw the Broadway adaptation of Aladdin. Not on Broadway, but it was the same show in a different theater. And I walked out of the show and I said, the Hyperion one was better. And my wife agreed with me. And like Frozen, that's not to say the Broadway adaptation of Aladdin was bad. It's just the Hyperion one was it's next level stuff. Some of my fondest memories of Disneyland were going to the Aladdin show and just wondering and hearing what the genie had to say. Other standouts include the amazing Iago puppet, the genie that would come out of the ground, whereas in the Broadway adaptation he just changes costumes a bunch of times. It's kind of funny. The performer who played the magic carpet and the flying magic carpet, and the insane wire work that they did for the show. It's so good. And if you loved all of the improv that the genie did, be sure, and I cannot emphasize this enough, follow at It's Dylan White on TikTok. He was a genie at the Hyperion and he filmed most, if not all of his performances, and he has tons of stories and clips to share. So if you want to relive the glory days of Aladdin Live at the Hyperion, at It's Dylan White on TikTok. Tell him offhand Disney sent you. And I still do believe to this day, I don't go out of my way for a lot of shows, but I would have gone out of my way to watch Aladdin every single time, and taking it away from us was a massive, massive disservice. Euro Disneyland was a massive failure. All right, on to number 1. No, you need me to explain more? All right. For one, a lot of the locals weren't too thrilled about Disney coming to Paris. Now this happens every time Disney builds a theme park, and I don't think we should necessarily write off these people, but usually they come around when the park starts bringing in a bunch of money for the area. And, you know, fun stuff to do. But I also can't really say that I don't understand. And not taking the French's worries about Disneyland coming to Paris into account is partially why it failed in the first place. And that showed when just about 25,000 people showed up to Euro Disneyland on its opening day. People weren't happy. To put it into perspective, that's less than half of what we Disney fans like to call capacity of the new park. But that's not to say the park itself was bad. It was actually one of the best Magic Kingdom parks made up until that point. I would argue that Tokyo Disneyland is pretty much a copy of the Magic Kingdom, but even today I think Euro Disneyland, now Disneyland Paris, stands on its own. In a good way, but people did not show up. And as a result, on all the lost money of Euro Disneyland, different projects all over the Disney company were put on hold, like Westcott for Disneyland. Different ride expansions and overlays were canceled too, but all over the company, people were feeling it. And like I said, it took a while for them to recover. This is one of the rare entries on my list that I think Disney will agree with me on, that the original Euro Disneyland was pretty much a failure. You know who helped with the design of Euro Disneyland? That's right, my good friend, Tony Baxter. And you know what else he helped design? I'll give you a second. It's Journey into Imagination, the original Epcot dark ride, where you would journey through different realms of imagination with Dreamfinder and his little tiny purple dragon Figment. Now, while it may not have been an opening day attraction for Epcot, it was extremely popular and sort of defined the vision and the feel of the park. And I think to a very large extent still does today. It's so memorable. Figment is the mascot of Epcot. But in the name of synergy, Michael Eisner decided to close down the original incarnation of Imagination to tie it in with Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, the show based on the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The result of this synergy was Journey into Your Imagination, widely regarded as one of the worst Disney attractions of all time, right up there alongside Superstar Limo. Both hardcore fans like you and I and everyday visitors hated the attraction, and it only lasted 2 years, much like another entry on this list, before Disney realized, hey, I think people might like Figment and Journey into Imagination. I had to make sure that I specified it was the original. And I told them, yes, Tony, we all miss Dreamfinder, and he couldn't agree more. This is the #1 entry on the list because I got to talk to the man behind the attraction, and he agrees that it's a mistake. Tony Baxter misses the original, and so do the rest of us. Disney, if you don't reopen the People Mover, you're remodeling all of Epcot. Please, bring back, heck, if you want to, a refreshed version of the original Journey into Imagination. I'm begging you. So there are my top 10 mistakes or failures Disney made in the history of the parks. I know I for sure left out a few that you guys need to tell me about in the comments down below. I want to hear what you guys think are the biggest shortcomings, failures, or mistakes that Disney has made in the parks. Yeah, you could say topical stuff like Genie Plus and park reservations, but you could also try to go for a deep cut. Try to surprise me. Talk about the Mickey Mouse Club Circus, or putting all those holes in the Matterhorn when it first opened. Something really interesting. We all know about reservations. And here's hoping that over all of these years, the executives and the Imagineers and the fans over at Disney are using these mistakes to pave the way toward a better future for the parks, and to pave the way for a People Mover that is open at Disneyland. I had to mention it one more time. Hello everybody, and thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. It's a top 10. I like doing top 10s. What did you think about it? Just trying to spread my wings, do some different style stuff, see what the audience is like, you know, that kind of thing. And speaking of audiences that I like, thank you very much to my Patreon supporters. Those are the names you see scrolling right there on your screen. All of them donate just $1 a month, depending on the color you see, maybe more, maybe a mystery amount, but they do help keep this channel going. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my supporters over at Patreon. If you want to join the club, like I said, just $1 a month gets you access to most of the perks. Also, it wouldn't be an Offhand Disney unless I shilled my Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I'm at Offhand Disney on all of those platforms. If you want some exclusive Offhand Disney video content that you can't get anywhere else on the internet, I highly, highly recommend following me on TikTok. I also want to shout out a brand new partner I have on this channel, Getaway Today. They will help you plan and help you execute your biggest Disney vacation ideas that you have. Execute, not like kill, but like carry out. I'll have a more official spot in the next video that comes out, but if you are planning a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World and you need some help, I mean, come on, we all need a little assistance every now and then, and they'll even help you get things like dining reservations. So those things are absolutely impossible to get at Disneyland right now, so you can see the value. Head over there, use my offer code, you'll get to save some money, and I'll get to make some money. So that's a win-win, right? Again, more coming in the next video, but everyone, that is where I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Everybody, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next one. Goodbye.